Okay, let's do a little Swift and SpriteKit project. We're gonna make a simple asteroid style game, and I think one of the most important things you're gonna learn here is just how to mess around with some rotation gesture recognizers. So let's go ahead and clear out the SpriteKit template, and if you're starting from scratch, just go over here to New Project and Xcode. Choose Game right under iOS, and on the next screen, just be sure it says Swift and SpriteKit. I've already got the game ready to go over here, so let's start clearing some things out. We don't need this. We definitely don't need all that. Go ahead and just take care of this. Probably won't even mess around with the touch statements, so I guess we leave it in. All right. Got it all cleaned up. Let's move the update statement just up to here, just in case we want to make use of that. It's not trailing down at the bottom. All right, now we're almost ready to go. I've got a ship image over here. It's just a triangle. Okay, it's not a big deal. You can make it on your own, or you can wherever I upload the project to, you can grab it. It's 82 by 106. That really doesn't matter too much. Just gives you an idea of the basic size. And I've already gone ahead and just dropped that into the assets catalog. I'm not even going to worry about the 2x image, all that. You know, we're just kind of playing around here. So let's get started. First thing we're going to do is actually head over here to our gamescene.sks file. Let's get rid of that. Let's drag a color sprite over here, and you can go ahead and put this at 0, 0. Let's set the texture to be that ship. There it is. And then let's come down here, and we're going to give it a physics definition set to the alpha mask. Okay, so that's just going to then make it just a tight little alpha channel, alpha-based body around the image. Okay, so it's kind of got this triangle. You can sort of see that blue line right there. And then let's take off affected by gravity. We'll go ahead and leave allows rotation on here and dynamic. Okay, so if something were to kind of push this right now, it's gonna go off in the direction that, you know, whatever collided with it. But it's not just gonna fall down. Okay, so and that's why we've got affected by gravity off. But it is, you know, just kind of this thing that it's going to be floating out there in space, which, hey, is the whole point of asteroids, right? Okay, so back over here to our game scene .swift file. Let's write in here. Oh, and I forgot to do one thing, actually. Before, hold that thought. Grab this guy and just name it ship, okay? We don't really need to set a custom class on this, okay? At least, I don't know. I think for now, that's okay. We can get away with it. Just being an SK Sprite node. All right, so back over here. Write var ship. So we're going to declare this guy as a SK Sprite node. It's just going to equal SK Sprite node. Just do your 2 parentheses right there, opening and closing, and then let's go ahead and associate with the guy that we set up, the ship that we set up in the .sks file. So we're going to write if let some ship, okay, SK Sprite node equals self dot child node with name. Now here's where we actually put in there the name. Notice it's a capital S, like I put over here in the scene file. That's where we put in there that name, and then as SK Sprite node. Okay, so we're kind of being maybe even a little overly cautious here. We're basically saying, hey, you know what? If you can make a variable named some ship that is an SK Sprite node out of whatever that thing is in the scene file, okay, as an SK Sprite node, then we're going to do whatever is inside of here, and that just comes down to writing ship equals some ship. Now, this is going to run right away when the project loads up. So, you know, if this succeeds, which we know it will, instantly, and for the rest of the span of this app, as long as we don't change it, this variable ship equals whatever that was in the scene file. Okay, so that's how we do it and why we do it. And then let's go ahead and set up. Oh, let's do our gesture. And you know what? Actually, if you want to just test this at this point, sorry, just put in here ship.alpha. You can set the alpha down to something like 0.1, and let's just test this in the iPhone real quick. And yeah, give it a sec. All right, if it loads up and you see something that's mostly transparent, that means it worked. All right, so let's get rid of that. Come over here, we're going to write let rotate rec for recognizer. It's going to equal a UI rotation gesture recognizer. Kind of wordy, right? And then just jump down here. Now, even though we set this up as a let, not a variable, which basically means this isn't going to change over time, doesn't mean that we can't add or set properties to it. And you'll see those in, actually, you don't really see much of them for this example. You see that more with the other thing that we're going to set up, which is going to be a tap gesture recognizer. But all right, so we're going to go ahead and add a target for this. Which means when we actually do a rotation gesture with our fingers, this is going to be the function that runs, and you're going to put in here game scene dot rotated view. Now here's where it gets a little tricky. I forget a lot of times how to do this. Put a underscore, a colon, and then so think of this as just one whole unit right here, right? And do I have, yeah, okay, so then this closes off that, and then that closes off that, okay. Yeah, not exactly intuitive, I don't think, but it's going to complain until we actually write that that function in there, rotated view. But before that, just put in here add gesture recognizer, and then you just put in there rotate rec. All right, so now our view is going to be set up to use that gesture recognizer. We just got to write the function and come down here and just write at objc, okay. This is kind of something you got to do now here in the Swift 4 days. Then write rotate. Did I say rotated? I would rather do rotated. Let's do that. Rotated view. And then do your underscore, okay. And then we're going to put in here sender UI rotation gesture recognizer, okay. So that means that we can basically get information from the gesture recognizer in this function right here, and we do that using a reference to sender. So you could write something like if sender, well, that's great, I forgot to turn my notifications off. If sender dot state equals dot began, okay. So a lot of gesture recognizers have a this state property with them. So this is going to basically run something in here as soon as the rotation begins, and we don't really need to do much with that. But I find it's always interesting to just kind of see it happen. And then we could put in here if sender dot state equals dot changed. Okay, and that's another one. We can write in there. We rotated. Now we actually are going to be doing some stuff in here, which is moving our ship around, right? Or rotating it. So let's do this. Let's come over here to the top of the file. Let's hold on to a few variables here. So one of them is going to be the rotation. This is going to be a CG float value. Initially that's going to equal 0, and then I'm going to make another variable called offset. And it's a little hard to understand what we're going to do with this right now, but basically every time we rotate, we want to hold on to a variable that kind of remembers what the previous rotation offset was, or basically our starting place to begin from rotating again. Otherwise, every time we rotate, our ship's going to want to kind of pop back to its initial rotation. So, all right, so let's look at what we're going to do inside the dot change. Okay, so we're going to say the rotation is going to equal CG float sender dot rotation. Okay, so one of the most important things we're getting out of this function is the actual rotation of our fingers, right? And then we're going to add onto that self.offset. I don't think I really need to write self there, but that's okay. We'll go for it anyway. So right now, that offset value equals 0. Okay, first time we run this through, right? You haven't rotated yet. This still equals 0. So it's really doing nothing at this point. But we're going to save that value or change that value in just a moment. And I found that the most natural way this rotates is if we multiply by -1. Okay, so I'm just going to put in here the rotation equals itself times -1, and I'm going to leave that kind of optional to you guys. So if you want to comment out that line, it's easier to do that than if we put in the rotation over here. I mean, put in this bit of math over there, right? But we could have. You can see if you like it like that. Let's put it that way. All right, so now all we have to do is we say the ship.zRotation, so that's its rotation property, is going to equal the rotation. And before we test this out, I know it's tempting, but come down here and write if sender.state equals .ended, then gotta do your closing bracket over here. Then what we're going to do is, and I'd actually like to see this too, we ended. Put in here self.offset. Again, we might not have to put that self part in there. Is going to equal the rotation. You could put the rotation times -1. You could also, at this point, just use the whatever that equals right there. Its current, rotation. And that's probably a little bit better because, again, if you did want to kind of comment that out and play with it, you wouldn't have to make a change down here as well. Okay, so what we should be seeing, which I hope we're seeing, is we can rotate this guy around using our fingers, and there's a way to test that in the simulator, even though you can't just touch your screen. What you can do is you can hold down the Option key, and I believe it's the Option key. Yeah, it is. And you'll notice that I got these two little circles over here, and sure enough, see how that is happening, right? So I haven't let go yet. Now I'm going to let go. I'm going to go rotate it again, okay? And, something backfired on me. See how it popped like that? So maybe, did I have to do... Maybe I did have to put this in here. Let's see. Well, that's an example of what we didn't want to see. Let me just go ahead and look at copy exactly what I've got in my notes. And hopefully this time around, not really sure why that would be any different, but it is. Look at that. I'll have to think on that one. I'm not really in the mood to think though. But so anyway, you'll notice that when I do let go, it's not jumping around, right? And if you look over here in the output window, obviously you see too, all the little things that are print statements in there. So things are working well. Let's go ahead and apply a force to this, okay? And to do that, we could use our touches, our touchdown statements. We already got them in here, but what the heck, we're kind of making this about gesture recognizers. So let's go and add in here a tap gesture recognizer. And there's some fun properties you can add to these, like 2-finger taps, stuff like that. So put in here UI tap gesture recognizer, and then we're going to come down here right after our rotation one. Let's set up, let's do this. It's right in here, tap rec.add target self. So basically doing the same thing that we did before. This time around, selector, this is going to be game scene.tapped view, and we don't really need to pass anything into this like we did with the sender over here with our rotated view. So we could just leave that as is. Let's throw in here tap rec number of touches. We can do both of them. Number of taps required and number of touches required. So here's where you get some of those options. All right, tap rec number of taps required equals 1 self view add gesture recognizer. And if you are going to be changing these things around to something other than 1, let's go ahead and do this. I'll just paste this in real quick. I believe at least one of these options you do need is multiple touch enabled. That's going to work well with the number of touches required. So you could require, two fingers tapping. And then let's come down to our tapped view. All right, so we do have to put in here at objc, Objective-C, function, tapped view. And then let's go ahead and just print out a we tapped. Okay, now here's where we're going to push forward our, basically we're pushing forward the physics body on our sprite, which of course kind of takes along with it the sprite itself. So put in here let x vec for vector, short for vector. This is going to be a CG float value, and we're going to make this be a, well, we're going to use the sine function. Let's put in here the rotation, so yet another reason we saved that. Throw in there -10, and then for the y vector. Now, if you want to do the math on this, feel free. If you want to sit down with a calculator and really scrutinize it, I welcome you to do that. I'm not going to do that for you, though. I'm not even going to think about it. I just know that this is going to send our ship in the direction that we want. So we're going to say the vector is going to be CG vector, and then it's asking for, well, it'll start to fill itself in here. So watch. And it doesn't matter which one of these you choose. They're all dx, dy. But this is going to be x vec, and then our y vec. So we'll no longer hear this complaint that we're not using it, because we are using those now. And then come down here and we write ship.physicsBody. The physics body is optional, okay, so it may or may not be applied to it, but so just put a question mark there, and then throw in there the actual impulse vector, so that's where the vector goes. And we should at this point be able to test this guy out, and that actually makes for a nice little stoppage point. Close to it, you know. I'm going to share with you guys one line of code that I think is worth looking at. But anyway, so you can see that I'm just tapping now. Rotate back around, make it go the other direction, and this is pretty much exactly how you know, that old Asteroids game you know, works, where you start going in one direction, then you spin around or go back the other way, and of course you know, we could, in another video, we could add in shooting, and well, one of the most important things would be taking the ship and moving it back over here to this side. You know, otherwise it's just gone off in space. We won't see it again. Yeah, let me just as just a little kind of fun add-on bonus here. I'm going to come down here to the in the touchdown statement, and here's a little bit of code I was sharing with somebody today via email. If you wanted to detect touching the physics body of the ship for whatever reason, you can actually go and use this. So basically we're going to try to set up a variable called the touched body, or body we touch, whatever you can think of it as, equal to self.physicsworld.body, and then at, and then you can put in here the position that you touch down at. Okay, so basically, oh, and you know what? I actually have to include in here. Sorry. I wiped out a bit too much from the starting template here. You know what? I'm not going to use touches moved or touched up, so let me just get rid of those. So this came included with the starting template, which basically just passes into our touchdown statement a position of wherever we touched in the screen. Okay, so that's POS. This is what we're using in this function. So what this is going to do is it's going to look for a physics body at that position, and I believe the only complaint right now is I'm not actually closing that off. And then we're going to put if let the sprite SpriteKit node equals touch body dot node as SpriteKit node, and again then put in here print the sprite. Okay, so basically we are getting a variable that's going to be the body, and oh wait, well, something's not right at the moment. Hold on. Oh, and you know what? That's just because I forgot to put if in there, I believe. So anyway, and then what we're doing is we are making a variable out of the body's attached node, okay? And we're essentially just testing to see if it is an Sprite node, in which case we just print out, you know, it's just going to show you some data about the sprite itself. But it's, you know, this is a little useful bit of code that I actually kind of forget about at times. So let's just click on it, and you'll see that sure enough, it prints us out some details. All right, so I'll be back in another video where we keep working on this.